Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for giving up your Sunday afternoon for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
And we were,
Go ahead.
okay, I was just going to say we were going to record as well, if that's okay with everybody, because some people are going to miss this and they really want to catch it. So
Judy Bayshore will like that idea because she said she can't make it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, the Anderson Valley is a nonprofit group that supports seniors in their abilities to age in place. And so we give, one of the things we do is these educational programs. So this is great. And, you know, I'll Zoom these days. But anyways, Micheline White is the executive director at Mendonoma Health Alliance, and she's agreed to come talk to us about the matter of balance, which is a whole program, like a lengthy program that I guess is because of COVID isn't really being offered right now. So, but luckily we can get little snippets of it now. So for that.
Yeah.
And I think all like the questions could be in the chat, or, you know, if that works for you guys. Cool. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Do you want me to? Am I good?
Yeah, whenever you're ready. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I muted myself.
Yeah, I'm glad to see so many faces today. I will just give you a little heads up that I have a 2-year-old son. So if he comes busting through the door, I might just
and I have a
to
4-year-old doing the same thing. So
yeah. So okay, so to start, I will just let you guys know, like Annika said, Matter of Balance is an 8-week program. So each week we meet for 2 hours at a time and go over everything related to fall prevention and how you can manage things in your environment with your cognitive awareness and other things in your life so that falls are prevented over time. And one of the things that I think is important just to start off with is fall prevention is really important, even if you're, I would say it's something you should start worrying about and thinking about in your 40s and 50s, which is probably, you know, much earlier than people think about. But if somebody's buying their forever home in their 40s or their 50s, then they should really be thinking about, does their house have stairs? Is their house going to be a place they can actually stay forever? So, and also making sure you're active early on, because chronic conditions tend to set in the late 40s, early 50s. And that's when your health becomes, plays a significant role in your balance. So that being said, I'm gonna give you guys, I'm just gonna pop up a presentation and kind of go through. The Matter of Balance program is very extensive. We spend a lot of time doing brainstorming, group activities, and exercises in person, a half hour each class. And the exercises, I'll go over a few of them and send you guys a PDF that you can keep with you at home. But the exercises are really great and easy because you can do a lot of them when you're sitting down watching TV or at your desk. And they're all related to range of motion, strength, and balance. So I'm going to go through some of those things, but let me share my screen. And here we go. Okay, so we already went through this. If you guys don't know, Mendonoma Health Alliance, just a quick blurb, we are located in Gualala. We serve the south coast of Mendocino from Irish Beach down to Gualala, and the northern coastal region of Sonoma County, and that is Timber Cove up through the Sea Ranch. And if any of you are on social media and involved in any of the county pages, you may have seen recently we launched an anti-stigma media campaign related specifically to reducing stigma associated with addiction. I think everybody has seen that addiction has played a huge role in our county recently and nationwide. And so just we're we're doing a countywide campaign to dispel stigma so people feel more comfortable seeking help. So anyway, if you might see us a lot on Facebook in the coming months, and we're partnering with Public Health and their SafeRx coalition. So that's another place you might see us. Okay, so let's get started. Not sure if everybody is, or how aware everybody is about falls and hospitalizations, but falls are the leading cause of hospital admissions for seniors. Fall prevention can help people stay out of the hospital. And falls, also linking this back to our crisis, falls create an environment where prescription opioids are needed. And then if that kind of situation occurs where you're prescribed opiates to care for your post-surgery, you then have another potential health risk if you're not careful about how those prescriptions are managed. So let's go into overview of presentation. So really what I'm going to talk to you guys today about are the 4 core contributors to fall prevention. It's your cognitive awareness of the distortions that happen in your thought process over time, and I'll talk specifically about what that means. Home safety is really important, exercise, and physical health. All right, so cognitive distortions, those are habitual ways of thinking that are often inaccurate or negative. And they can be pretty hard to identify because they happen over time. And usually you start creating thought distortions due to an adverse effect to something that happened to you. So for example, if you have fallen, like in public or at home, and that became embarrassing to you, or you became fearful because of that fall, over time, it can be restrictive in how you then make choices about your life. So one of the things that we do with the Matter of Balance program is really teach people about behavior change. So if you've gotten into those habits where you're saying things like, I can't go to the concert because I can't be in a crowd that big, I'm too afraid of falling. Changing that thought into, well, actually I can go if I take these steps to be safe. Staying a little bit later so that the crowd thins out, or leaving maybe 20 minutes early before the crowd leaves the theater. So just thinking of ways that you can change those negative thoughts into positive actions. Other things people say here that we hear a lot in the classes are people saying they don't want to be a burden on their friends and family. And friends and family are there to support you. That's the whole purpose of community. And so asking for help doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a burden. It actually gives other people the opportunity to feel good about helping their friends and family. So something else we hear a lot is that, well, if I talk about the fact that I've fallen or my fear of falling, my independence might be taken away because my medical provider is going to suggest I go to a nursing facility, or my children are going to put me in a medical facility. And that's not always true. If you can, along the way, talk to your family and friends and medical provider about the steps you're taking to prevent falls, it actually encourages them that you're being as independent as possible and aging in place in a safe environment. So what happens when you start having these thought distortions is that over time you increase isolation. And we know what happens with increased isolation. People become depressed, lonely. And again, you have other health concerns to deal with if that's the case. And so that's why it's not only for your physical abilities, but also your mental health. It's really important to recognize when your thoughts start going in that direction, that negative direction. So that way, over time, you aren't increasing your exposure to isolation. So what we teach in Matter of Balance is cognitive restructuring. We have the group do brainstorms, and we talk about, okay, when you say something like, I can't go because I'm going to fall, how are you feeling? Like, what are those emotions that you're feeling in the moment? Because that can really tell you whether or not you should be addressing the issue. If you're really upset about something, then the chances are you're going to have negative thoughts. And if you can recognize that your emotional state is a little bit heightened when you're having those thoughts, sometimes you could take a couple deep breaths. And that's another thing we teach is breathing exercises, because that really relieves the level of stress you're experiencing. And over time, you can then come back and revisit the topic that you're worried about. So once you've recognized the emotional state you're in, you can think about the situation specifically. Is it that you can't go to a concert? And I'm just going to use that one because it's the easiest one to go with. But let's say you can't go to a concert or event because you're afraid of the crowd and that you're going to fall because there's so many people around you. So is it that the people are going to make you fall, or is it that it's a fear of falling? And if you're afraid that somebody's going to bump into you, you think about ways to then make that different. Maybe you have a friend hold your arm on the way down the stairs. Maybe you show up really early so that, or not really early, but a little bit earlier so that it's not crowded. And then a lot of times with negative thoughts, it's really important to kind of say like, okay, is there evidence to support this feeling and these thoughts? Have I fallen? Sometimes people haven't fallen. They're just afraid that they will. When I fell, how did other people react? Sometimes people think the reaction, like you're embarrassed, but other people aren't embarrassed that you fell. They just want to be helpful and get you back up. And then the final part of that restructuring is really just identifying your alternatives. Instead of staying home and missing out on a lot of great fun that you could have in your life and memories that you could be building with your family and friends, how can you make those happen? So that way you're both safe and you're getting those experiences. So I'm going to stop there for a second. Does anybody have questions so far? Okay. Next on the list is home safety. Home safety is one of the most important things because it's your physical space. And there's so many things in your physical space that could be trip hazards if you're not aware of them. So one of the most important things we stress with home safety is decluttering. Make sure you have clear walkways. Sometimes, and I know this because I have a 2-year-old, but there's like a Lego laying in the middle of the floor and you step on it and and that's a trip hazard. So just making sure that if something drops on the floor, it's cleaned up right away. Because if you leave it, you might and say, oh, I'll get it later. You might forget that it's there when you need to walk back through that path. Removal of unstable chairs and tables. You know, everybody sees in like movies and things over time, somebody sitting in a chair and the chair breaking. And that is a real thing to worry about. If you have unstable chairs or tables at home, it's really important that you either figure out how to stabilize them or maybe think about replacing them. Slip hazards are all over the place in your house if you let them be. Sometimes liquid spilling. I don't know if you guys have ice makers on your refrigerators, but like if an ice cube pops out and dries up on the or melts on the floor and you're wearing flip-flops, for example, you could slip and fall. So just making sure that spills are cleaned up right away. And lighting is really important too. A lot of times with our emergencies, so we work with our local ambulance crew with this program because their #1 reason for emergency dispatches is falls. And so we introduced this program as a way to reduce falls, and we were successful in decreasing fall calls. It's a tongue twister, but by 35% between year 1 and year 3 of the program. So what that tells us is it's an evidence-based program. We know that if you take the steps to make your home environment safe, you are going to reduce your risk of fall. And lighting is a big deal. A lot of times getting up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom. First of all, it's kind of, when you have to get up in the middle of the night, you're kind of disoriented sometimes. And so that on top of lighting issues is a real hazard. So there are things you can do to fix the lighting. There are battery powered push lights that you can adhere to your wall with, like with that glue that doesn't ruin your paint, or not glue, but the tape that doesn't ruin your paint. There are little things you can get to light your stairway. If you guys order from Amazon, which I'm going to assume that living in Anderson Valley, most of you have ordered from Amazon. And if you haven't, then maybe find it locally. But you can look online and find lighting options that are battery powered or plug-in, and light the paths that become dim as the day progresses toward night. Grab bars are really important for toilets, showers, and anywhere that, even for stairways, anywhere that you might need to either pull yourself up or need help balancing as you move. And this is what we talked about earlier, thinking about fall prevention early on in life. Steep steps in a home are dangerous. I have them in my house, and every one of my family members has fallen down those stairs. So it's not just an issue for anybody who's over the age of 60. It's just a safety issue in general. And the difference is that as you get older, when you fall, your body doesn't take the impact of the fall the same. So sometimes you can get those chair lifts installed that take you up the stairs. Those are pretty expensive. Other people I know have switched the way they live to where they use the downstairs area as their bedroom instead of their upstairs bedroom. Other things to really pay attention to are extension cords and anything that really can go across to the floor. And this is a really interesting one. Ladders. You don't have to admit it if you still get on a ladder, but ladders are not safe if you're in any way, shape, or form worried about your balance. And I know that one of the things we talk about in the class are, instead of getting up on a ladder to replace the batteries in the smoke alarm or the lights in your house, what can you do instead? So I'm just curious with that question. Does anybody have ideas of alternatives to using a ladder? I see Robert and
Yeah, it's Sandra, really.
Okay.
Anyway, have a friend do it for you. That's what I do. I do not get up on the stepladder anymore at all. So I just rely on other people to help me. That's a good solution.
And we have volunteers through the village, younger volunteers that will do stuff like that. So
that's perfect. And one of the things that if there isn't a volunteer, if you guys have a local fire department, I guarantee you, if you call your local firefighters, the volunteer firefighters, they'll help you out. And that's what we kind of do in our community. Is annually we in October, I forget the name of the national month, but we have the local fire department go and replace batteries and smoke alarms for seniors. And it's an annual thing. And if their smoke alarm is damaged, then we have some local funding that pays for the cost of a new smoke alarm. But reaching out to your service agencies, I know you guys have a senior center, calling the senior center and saying, hey, do you have anybody available? So yes, absolutely. And if a lot of times in our community, people are like, well, I can't afford to ask to pay somebody to do that. And that's why I always suggest the fire departments, because a lot of times they're volunteers and they're very community-centered people. Pets, we love them. I love my animals, but I can't tell you how many times I've tripped over them. I don't think it's really reasonable to say get rid of your pets. They're your family members, but there are things you can do to make sure you know where they are all the time. So for example, putting a bell on your cat or dog, so that way, or some kind of thing that along their collar, so that when they're moving throughout the house, you can hear it. There are also baby gates. You can put a baby gate up if you're cooking in the kitchen, and which, you know, if you're cooking, it requires you to turn around, move to the sink, move to the refrigerator. You can put a gate up to block them from the kitchen while you're cooking. Or if you haven't, like I have a really nice backyard area and we put our dogs in the yard while we're cooking. So just some of those things to keep in mind. I don't know about your pets. My pets want to be up in our business all the time, which is wonderful. But it's important to know that if they're behind you, you know, and if they're small or large, regardless of the size, you can trip over them. Okay, so using assisted devices. When your doctor says to you, you know, you might want to start using a cane when you walk, or a walker. They're telling you for a really good reason, and that's because they recognize that there might be fall risks for you, and that's a really great way to avoid them. And I see this all the time, and I'm gonna, sorry for the gentleman here, I'm gonna call it out, but men seem to be really on more often than not willing to use their assistive devices all the time or as prescribed. So if you're not one of those gentlemen, then that's great. You're on the track to fall prevention. But if you are one of those people who feel like, oh, if I use a cane, it's going to make me look old. If I use a cane, it's going to make me look incapable. The alternative to that is you don't use it and you fall, and then you become incapable of walking and taking care of yourself. So make fall prevention a priority. And then the last one, which is so important, is footwear. Sandals and flip-flops and things that don't have straps that adhere to your feet are going to, over time, create potential fall hazards. So make sure you're paying attention, not only for the fall hazard part of it, but having the proper footwear is important for your back, for your shoulders, for your hips, for your knees. So so taking time to really go through the shoes that maybe you already have some that you've kind of tripped in or stumbled in a little bit. It might be time to replace those. Something I did not mention to you guys yet was the little mats that you put in your, sometimes people put in their showers that have the little silicone suction cups. Those can be dangerous because over time, if they're not cleaned regularly, they can get slimy underneath. And then you can go slip right from under you. And then next thing you know, you're in the shower and you can't get up. So alternatives to those little mats are, you can get those stickers that adhere to the bottom of your bathtub, and they're kind of like a almost like sandpaper feeling, but not quite. Those are a better option than the mats. And throw rugs throughout your house can be pretty big trip hazards. And actually, one of the biggest reasons for falls, outside of some of the things I've mentioned, like pets and ladders, are the rugs in your house, because the corners can peel up over time. And so an alternative to getting rid of all your rugs, if you really don't want to get rid of your rugs, is to get some tape or Velcro that you can adhere the corners of the rugs down to the floor so they don't peel up over time, and so that way they don't move, because sometimes you could be walking on them and they could slip under you. So All right. Any questions or comments? Okay. So I'm going to show you this next picture because these are things that I found online, but I was like, oh, I think it'd be great to show people some of their options. Especially if you haven't had to deal with durable medical equipment before or any kind of assisted device. It's nice to see it so that you know what to look for. In this picture at the top left-hand corner, you can see that there's a shower chair there. And throughout the shower, there are grab bars to hold on to. Next to the toilet on both sides, actually, there are grab bars. And what's really cool about that picture is it shows that if you don't have a wall to put grab bars on both sides, you still have options. You can still get this kind of bar installed in your bathroom. In the larger picture to the right, I really like this because sometimes you get a shower chair and you're like, okay, I put it in my bathtub. How do I get in the bathtub now? Well, this one has an extended bench. So you can actually sit on the end of the extended bench and then turn your body and put your legs in to the tub and scoot over on the bench. Sometimes people, as they age, start to roll over a little bit more in their sleep. And so at the bottom, you can see a picture of a railing, which is really easy to install. It actually just attaches to your bed frame. And so it's a pretty sturdy option. And then with the toilet seat, another alternative is to just have either you can get something like this installed where it sits under your toilet seat in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also get ones that have, if your toilet is too low, that can be dangerous also because then as you're trying to get back up, you risk the fall. That's where the fall risk exists, not necessarily when you're sitting down, it's when you're trying to get back up. So you can get these handles with seat risers. So that way, instead of going the costly route and replacing your whole toilet, you just add the assisted device there. All right, and just so you guys know, a lot of, I think most durable medical equipment is available through insurance. It's reimbursed by Medicare. So not all, but most. All right, so the next topic was exercise. And I know that when we say exercise, some people hate exercise and you're like, I'm not gonna exercise, that's crazy. But exercise can be really enjoyable. It can be swimming, it can be a slow walk. So I'll talk about setting goals in a minute, but there are so many ways you can make physical activity fun. 4 things that we really stress when we're teaching the Matter Balance program is not only balance, but strength, range of motion, and consistency. Balance is enhanced when your muscles and your ligaments are stronger and more flexible. So 30 minutes a day is what is suggested by providers. But you don't have to do all 30 minutes at the same time. You could actually take a 10-minute walk or do something stretching for 10 minutes 3 times a day. Or you could do 2 15-minute sessions. So as long as you're doing some work to keep your body moving, that's what's the most important. And I remember when I was trained to teach the Matter Balance class, one of the trainers talked to us about something actually happens with the amino acids or something in your muscles where it's called webbing actually happens, where on a microscopic level, you can look and see what looks like spider webs if you don't move over time. And if you want to avoid that webbing from happening, you have to move. So people who are predominantly in the sitting or laying down position throughout the day are going to experience that over time. And what it does is it kind of locks your muscles and bones into a certain position. And so the nice thing about, the one thing that you should realize is that if you have any physical constraints at this point. Like maybe your posture, and I have terrible posture, so who am I to talk? But if your posture isn't great, then you can over time correct that. If you work on it daily, it might not get to the most perfect posture you've ever seen, but it will improve. If you're having a really hard time getting up out of chairs, it's not the end of time for you. You can work up and get yourself strong enough to get out of chairs. So all of those things can be corrected over time with movement. And one thing that's really important to think about is listen to your body. If you're doing one of the stretches that I'm about to show you and it hurts, you should really modify what you're doing. Maybe reach a little bit less or don't reach as far. Pay attention, because when you try to do something because you think, oh, this is what my instructor told me I should be doing, but you know your body doesn't feel right, then you risk getting hurt, and then you're immobile or restricted for a while, which worsens the problem of balance over time. So making sure you listen to your body. And I thought this was really funny. Says, grandmother, watch out, and she's on a tightrope. And she says, don't panic, exercise reduces my fall risk. So, all right. And before we go to the exercises, just quickly, physical health plays a huge role in your balance and fall prevention. Number one thing is stay hydrated. Water is a big deal. If you are a coffee drinker, coffee dehydrates you. So for every cup of coffee you drink, you should probably drink two glasses of water. Hydration can lead to dizziness. Hydration in general can lead to stomach cramping and not feeling well, nausea. So making sure you drink a lot of liquids. And I know a lot of times people might say, well, like, I don't like to drink water. It doesn't have a great taste. While the preference is to drink water, if you don't like drinking water, then add some lemon to it, add a squeeze of lime to it, or drink something that is really low in sugar, really low in salt, and has a little bit of flavor. One of the things I do a lot is put a little splash of orange juice in a huge thing of water, and then it tastes like a little bit of a flavored water. So hydration is important. And honestly, if you say, I'm not drinking water, it's just not going to happen. If you drink anything, it's better than not drinking all day long, or drinking coffee and sticking with only coffee throughout the day. A couple tips we give people are to carry a water bottle, something that's easy to carry along with you. You can sometimes get canteens that have a purse strap on them, so that way you always have your water with you. And you'd be surprised, on the days I forget my water bottle, I don't drink water. And then I get to the end of the day and I'm like, why do I kind of feel weird? Why do I feel like this? And it's because of the water. So reviewing your prescriptions with your providers regularly is very important, especially if you have more than one provider. So creating a list of your medications and bringing it with you to the doctors that you see, if you see more than one. The doctor's medical records oftentimes don't talk to each other. So one provider might prescribe you something that really contradicts the purpose of another medication, or does not mix well together. And that can create all separate health issues, even, further than balance issues. So just making sure that you have your prescriptions reviewed by your primary care provider on a regular basis. And anytime you get a new prescription, making sure your providers know what you're already taking. And this one is embarrassing sometimes, but constipation can be an issue. And the reason why is when you're sitting on the toilet and you're straining, you can become hypotensive, where your blood pressure goes lower. And then when you go to stand up from the toilet, you fall. And believe it or not, our paramedics, and I don't know if it's the same in Anderson Valley, but our paramedics see a lot of people who have just fallen off the toilet. So if you're feeling constipated, make sure you treat it right away, and make sure, that's why the grab bars on your toilet are really important as well, because that can help from the dizziness. Hypotensive and hypertensive people who experience one or the other, it creates dizziness. And how many of you, just by show of hands, have sat up in your bed and felt a little dizzy before your feet hit the floor? Has that ever happened to anybody? Yeah, so I know that for even myself, when I get up from bed, I'm always dizzy every single morning. So before standing up, taking a couple deep breaths and centering yourself can prevent your falls over time. So a lot of times too, when you're sleeping and you wake up right away, your blood pressure, because you've been laying down for the whole night, your blood pressure is different. And then when you stand up right away, it's just that shift. Or if you have inner ear issues, getting up out of bed too quickly could be dangerous as well. So last thing I will just say is that your vision and hearing are very important when it comes to your balance. And regular checkups with your optometrist, and I forget, what do they call the ear doctors?
Audiologist.
Thank you. Yeah, so regular checkups with them to make sure everything's okay. And I found this cartoon I really liked on the right-hand side here. So, and the woman says, "So you finally got hearing aids?" And the other woman says, "Yes, I realized I was silly to think they'd make me stand out." And then the person serving them coffee is somebody with colored hair, piercings, and tattoos. So hearing aids are just there to help. Nobody really notices them. And if they are noticed, it's just such a part of life. So many people have hearing aids that it shouldn't be something that you're concerned about being judged for or embarrassed about. Plenty of people in their 20s and 30s have hearing aids too. All right. Okay, so before we go to the question and answer, I'm going to share my screen again because I want to show you guys the exercises that I'm going to send to you in an email, Annika, and then you can distribute to everybody. Okay, let me find the share version. Where we go? Okay, here we go. So I won't do these with you guys today, but I'll just show you. This is a website, the Southeastern Health and Social Care Trust. It's a public health agency, and they have a fall prevention program as well. And this is really great because it not only shows you what the exercises are, but they talk about them and how you should do them properly. So maintaining posture is really important. If you kind of sit slumped and you don't have a strong core, then you could fall over to the left or the right. So it'll tell you about posture, and this is a really easy thing to do. Just paying attention to that when you're sitting down and also standing up. Let me make these images a little bit bigger. Okay. Then there's these exercises to warm up, marching arms and marching hands. You can do this when you're watching TV, when you're talking with friends. You can actually have friends over if you're all vaccinated, and do these exercises together while having tea. Side claps. This really helps increase your flexibility and range of motion, moving side to side. And also, if you do enough of them, you'll feel the next day that your arms are a little bit sore. When I teach this class, actually, and I work out, I'm a pretty active person. And it's funny because when I teach the classes, we're doing the half-hour workouts with everybody during every class. And like the next day after the first class, I'll be like, why are my arms sore? So my point to that is two things. If you're comfortable while you're doing the exercise, it's normal for you to have a little bit of like muscle fatigue or muscle soreness the next day, as long as it's not too extreme. If it does feel extreme, let your muscles rest a little bit, maybe focus on a different type of exercise for the following days until you feel a little bit better. And then reintroduce the exercise, but do less repetitions. So, and then simple things you can do when you're sitting anywhere is stretching your feet, your toes and your heels out with toe taps and heel taps. That helps with your ankle. Your ankles are very important to balance. So this is a really good exercise for your ankles. Okay, thigh stretch. Stretching is really important for range of motion. And this one, the chest stretch, is really important. Your upper back, over time, if you don't pay attention to or exercise it a lot, you can then create the issue where you're hunched over and your back is no longer in the proper posture. And when you're walking like that, it's hard to walk from heel to toe. And so then you're shuffling a little bit more. And if you're shuffling around, you risk falling because your feet can get stuck on something, or your feet can get stubbed in different areas. So the chest exercise is a really good one for correcting posture over time. And then there are other ones where you have to stand up to exercise. And with those ones, just making sure you see that these people here are demonstrating them with a bar for balance. You can get a chair and stand behind a chair in your home, as long as it doesn't have wheels on it, and use that for balance. You don't have to have a bar in your house. You could also, like sometimes when I go and check my washer and dryer to see if the clothes are ready to be taken out yet, I show up a few minutes early, so I'll stand there and use my washer and dryer to stretch on. So really anything in your house, your kitchen counters, you can use all those things. This thing, this PDF that you'll get has a really great template in here that you could use to record your exercising. And goal setting is a really important thing with exercise. So if you record your number of your repetitions, you can see where you're starting from and where you're comfortable, and then set goals to increase it over time. And then with your progression notes, you can note how you're feeling. You can note like, oh, wow, today I felt like I could do this exercise more than I did before, or I feel more comfortable doing it, or I notice that my ankles are really more flexible than they used to be. So keeping a log is a great way to keep track of your progress, and it makes you feel good about it. And so over time, you'll be more encouraged to continue doing it. All right. So I'll let you guys heel to toe walking. This is an important one. Like I said, if you're shuffling your feet instead of taking steps, it's much easier to lose your balance if you're shuffling. So anyway, this is a really great resource. It shows you how to get up out of your chair appropriately, and a bunch of different stuff. So I'll make sure you guys get that. And that's all I had to present to you guys. We have about 15 minutes left. I just want to see if there's any questions. Sorry, I know I gave you a lot of information.
So I want to thank you, Micheline. This is excellent. A very thoughtfully put together presentation, and I think really good advice. So is this something that you guys ever leave your community to present, or can someone go over and observe or be trained by you?
Yeah, so the pandemic really messed this whole program up for us. We were on a roll, and we're seeing the impact that we wanted with the reduced fall calls for emergency services. And then And then this was one of our only programs where the developers of the program said, you can't teach it because we can't be in person. You're teaching people exercises. It's dangerous to do it over Zoom. So they are, as soon as the state opens back up in mid-June, I believe they're going to allow for what's called a master trainer. All of my staff is going to become master trainers. And the reason we want to do that is because we realize that fall prevention is countywide, so what we'll do is once we're master trainers, anybody from your community will be able to take our class to become a fall prevention coach, which is what I am right now. And at that point, you guys can start your own program, and you can either do it under your own, you can get your own master trainers at that point, send them off to get the licensing and start your own program, or you could host the classes and then just use our license to do it. So right now we're using the Sonoma County Area Agency on Aging as our license group, but because our office is located in Mendocino County, even though we serve their Sonoma County residents, they're saying you have to get your own license because you're in a different county. So that's why we're moving to the licensure. But we would be more than happy to be like the facilitator of the licensing. So that way it relieves the burden of the reporting and all that kind of stuff for other agencies.
And I remember the training was like, like a few days, and it was like, when I looked at it before, it was like about $1,000, I think I remember.
Yeah, so
That
the master trainer class is, I think when I looked last, it was a $1,500 fee to become a master trainer. And then you also had to pay for the travel and the food, and the lodging that comes along with it. So we actually, in our budget, we balanced $4,500 for each person because the cost of the hotels, the master trainer courses are usually out of the state. So you have the flights, the hotels, the food, and whatever materials they might need to come to the class with. So, yeah.
But yeah, that would be great if we could sort of coordinate with you guys eventually, and piggyback off of you. That would be wonderful for us if we could get somebody interested in that over here too.
Yeah, and honestly, what's great is the one thing I always feel kind of funny about is, I'm in my 30s and I'm teaching people who are, my mom and dad's age fall prevention. I think sometimes when I get to a new class, we're a small community, so most people know me already. But for the people who don't, I'm there and I'm like, I'm going to teach you fall prevention. And they're like, what are you? You're like 30 something, go away, So the one thing I will say is that it's great to have seniors teaching the fall prevention class. And so anybody who's interested in kind of a role as a volunteer, you really get to choose when you host the class. You have to do it with one other person, and it's 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. So it's not a ton of your time. You could host, I think when we first start, you're supposed to host 2 classes in the first year to keep your coaching certification. But after that, you only have to do 1 class a year. So you could really put the time up front and then decide, is this for you or not? And if so, you could do it once a year and help out. The classes take up to 16 people.
So you had mentioned an 8-week program, but you also said 30 minutes per class. So how many classes?
Yeah, so we do 8 weeks. Each week is 2 hours, and 30 minutes of the 2 hours is spent doing exercise.
Oh, I see.
And the other hour and a half is spent doing, there's like a workbook, and a lot of it is fun though, because it's pairing off into groups or with one other person. And you just bring up something that you might be struggling with in your own life, and you're not sure how to solve the problem. And so you talk about it. And I mean, the issues have to be related to falling. It's not a discussion of other things, but home safety, cognitive thoughts, and then we work together we pull everybody back as a main group and work together on maybe one person specific issue that they want addressed a little bit more. And by the end of the class, everybody has gained new relationships, feels empowered. And we do 30-day post check-ins to see if anybody's fallen or had been admitted to the fall due to admitted to the hospital due to a fall. And 100% of our participants have not been admitted to the hospital 30 days post the class. And then we did, at one point, we had done a 90-day check-in too, just to see if some of our participants were still using the skills they used or they learned, or if they were improving their home for safety. And I can't remember the specific number, but it was in the 70 percentile that people were still doing the exercises 90 days after the classes or making changes to their environment. So.
I had a thought when you were talking about keeping your prescriptions up to date and lighting. For some reason, those things intersected with me for seniors putting together their to-go bags. That would be a really important place to have their prescriptions and really good light.
Mm-hmm. And you say to-go bags, are you talking about a program or just
evacuation? No, fire evacuation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a great, actually, when I was trying to find some images to put into the PowerPoint, I was putting in fall prevention as keywords, and fire stuff popped up about evacuation strategies and stuff. So.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing for people to be thinking about where they have to go to get their to-go bags, as there are any stairs and things, and also having really good light, because even in daytime, the smoke gets so heavy, it's like nighttime.
Flashlights, having little mini flashlights on your keychains or right next to your bed. Those are really great ways. But if you're going to do something that requires you to hold on to something as you're going, then having your other hand free is really important. So that way, if you kind of like having a flashlight in your other hand could cause balance issues as well. So, Cynthia?
A headlight.
Yeah. Yes. Headlamps. I love those.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Cindy.
Speaking of lighting, when you were talking about tripping over animals, I have a friend who was in kind of a darkened room in the evening near the door standing, and her husband came in and tripped over their dog and fell on her ankle and severely broke it. And that was just a random thing, but the room was darkened and the dog was right in front of the door and he didn't see the dog. So that just lighting is really important.
Yeah, and lighting not only inside your house, but on your walkways outside your house. So I have a running joke with one of the gentlemen that I host the class with. He's in his 70s. He's actually one of my best friends. And we got together to plan one of our sessions, and I said to him, Stephen, you're not going to believe what happened to me last night. I got home late from work and it was dark outside, and I don't have lighting when you pull into my driveway, and my husband has all these beautiful vines growing everywhere. And I heard something which I thought might have been a mountain lion. It frightened me a little bit. And so I kind of moved very swiftly to get to my entry gate, and one of the vines like wrapped around my ankle or something, and I fell. And he was like, you're teaching a fall prevention class and you don't have lighting in your driveway. So he bought me lighting for my driveway, and you can get little solar ones, so that way you don't have to worry about replacing batteries. So
It's the little things that are big end up being big. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And just in general, if you know that the dark, like being outside in the nighttime, is something that you're concerned about with your balance and falling, then maybe just make plans so that you get home in time for it to not be dark when you're arriving back home. So there are tons of things, all kinds of alternatives to making your environment more safe and making sure you don't isolate yourself from your life. So,
True.
all right.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Erin.
thank you so much. That was
Of
awesome. We
course.
really
And-
appreciate it. This is exactly what we needed.
Perfect. And
Thank
I will
you.
send the slides to you guys. I mean, I don't know if they're useful or not, but I'll let you have them, and I'll make sure I get the link to Annika for that exercise pamphlet or
Wonderful.
PDF.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll keep in contact with you when we do have, you know, I'm really hoping we can get our staff as master trainers by the end of this year. And we'll let you know when that happens.
Awesome.
just
And we'll try
wanted
to
to-
round up some willing volunteers to take this on.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that Anderson Valley is doing a fitness challenge running from May 15th until June 15th. And I'm disappointed that this isn't a class that we could offer during this month, but maybe we can talk it up and say coming soon, maybe this summer, later this summer.
Yeah. Oh, you know, that fitness challenge made me think of something. When the weather changes, if you're somebody who's an avid walker, when it's nice outside, don't let the weather change that for you. Just try to plan for something different. If it's raining outside, can you walk around your house a little bit more? Can you wait till a break in the weather? But just make sure that the weather is not the reason you're inactive. So, and I know the time change is a big deal too. For me, I run outside. I can't run in the winters. It's dark at like 5 o'clock. So just making the extra effort to recognize those things, that cognitive awareness of your situation, so that way you can prepare yourself. So, all right.
Okay,
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you, everyone.
bye-bye.
Have a good
Bye.
week or Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Right. Week.